Hello, Internet. My name is Kyle Johnson, and you are listening to the Geekin Dad Podcast. Thank you for listening, and welcome. So, this podcast is me attempting to learn how to parent and how to just weave in my personal nerdy passions, such as gaming, comics, and the likes, with work, family life, and, like I said, parenting. On today's episode, I have the honor of talking to one of my most absolute favorite people on the internet. He's not the biggest person in the world by any stretch, but he's one of the most genuine guys on the internet. That is none other than MikeB, aka Phony. Now, before we get into this podcast, let me just say this. We go far, we go wide, and we go deep, including things as potentially uncomfortable as miscarriage. At the time of recording our podcast together, he was very excited, expecting the birth of baby number 2, and it is with just nothing but heartbreak and sadness that there's no other way to put it, they lost the baby. So, as you're listening to this, just bear that in mind and have some, compassion for the situation, and just know that you're not the only one who might be struggling with this, if that's you, and if you're in the same shoes as him. My heart goes out to the Baily family. I know they're still working through it, and without further ado, hopefully you will enjoy this very first episode of the Geekin Dad Podcast with MikeB. So I am terrible at intros. This is going to be about as beautiful of an intro as Did You Who. I am not going to lie.
We work really hard on intros, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're so good. I don't know if I can live up to them.
The standard has been set.
A very high one at that. So anyhow, thank you for your time this morning, good sir. For those of you who don't know who is on the line with me, I have none other than Darnell. I mean, MikeB, aka Funny. Thank you so much for showing up this morning, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me. It's Sunday morning. It's Sunday. Typically weekends are nice and chill.
That they are.
So it works out, and it's plus it's super early, so yeah, we can knock this out and still have a whole day.
It's amazing. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I'm in Texas, so I'll have like half of my day left, but it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I wasn't gonna wake up at 8 o'clock Texas time.
No, and I sure ain't gonna ask nobody to do that unless if they're in Texas. But yeah, so okay, so for people who don't know who you are, let's do like a quick, the past 5-year rundown of where you were 5 years ago, and like the 30-second, 60-second. I did this in 5 years. Oh, and I had a kid, and I'm expecting another one.
So 5 years ago, I was right in the middle of kind of like ramping up, being an internet personality. It's hard to say YouTuber because I worked with a bunch of different companies and made content for them, not exclusively for YouTube. It was just one of many, outlets essentially. And things were going great. And then I had a kid. No, no. I was building all that up, and then I had a kid, which I'm sure we'll talk about what kind of impact that had. And then roughly the same time, I also got picked up full time at one of my contract gigs, and so I started doing that full time as from more of a business perspective in the games industry. Everything prior to that, when you do a lot of content and you work with a lot of video game developers, you become very familiar with the industry and the inner workings of it and the trends and all that stuff. And so essentially I became a games industry analyst, which to people who are not in the games industry might sound kind of silly, but if you follow sports, you know exactly what a sports analyst does. You make educated guesses based off of your experience and everything you've studied in that field, And so I've since left that position, and I'm back to just working content. And it's my kid is now 3 years old, so just basically balancing all of that and still moving along and doing pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I've been following you, I don't know how long, but for at least 7 or 8 years now, I guess. Just
That's
kind
about,
of,
yeah.
because I remember some of the very first BFF reports and really getting to know you back in the Gamebreaker days.
Mm-hmm.
However long ago that was. And just kind
4.
of passively watched both your online career plus your becoming a parentness. What little bit you showed us early on. Speaking of early on, this is one of my favorite videos that you've posted of all time, and this is kind of jumping right into the whole being a parent of a kid and also being into technology and into games and all that fun stuff. Is one of my favorite videos you posted of Declan is when he was really little, and it's the piano versus the iPad piano. And it's the video, you know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Where you put in the toy piano, and he is just losing his shit.
He's like
And
miserable.
Miserable. And he can't be, 3 months old in that video? Maybe 6 months? I don't remember. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely in the months for sure.
Yeah. And then you put the iPad in front of him with the piano app, and he is as happy as could be. Tell me a little bit about what you were thinking about as you saw that and recorded, because that's a pretty key. I mean, my daughter's the same way, right? Like, my daughter's 2, and every morning when she wakes up, it's all about the Kindle.
Yeah.
And so just walk us through a little bit, like how you perceive that and what Declan's kind of been through with that kind of stuff.
So, I would say that like seeing my kid kind of start to embrace technology, you recognize that, like you kind of take and you analyze your own like gaming history. You know, if you talk games with somebody, what first games you play? Oh, I played this. You know, I was like 5 years old. You kind of recognize that. Oh yeah, this game had an influence on, or this interaction with a computer or device or technology or whatever in general had an influence on who I am now, based off of, you know. Like first I started off, I had a rotary phone, right? And now I have a cell phone. Like you recognize the technology progression. And so I think that was the biggest thing for me was, you know, it's not that he was 3, 4, 5 months old or something like that. He couldn't even barely hold his head up, right?
Yep.
So it wasn't like he was already spoiled with technology. He hadn't had enough time to really develop that. It was just that the toy piano was just not as exciting as the screen, because the app that he was using not only like had like piano sounds or like, you know, synth sounds or whatever, but it also had like an oscilloscope that would show like the waveform being rendered and everything. So it was an exciting piece of an exciting interaction experience for him as a 3-month-old. The coolest thing he's probably seen.
Probably, yeah.
And so he's starting out life with a synthesizer on a flat touch screen with no moving buttons, right? With an oscilloscope and like just stimulation. He's starting out his technology, career life with something that's so exciting already. So that was the thing that I think I recognized first. It was like, wow, this kid is so lucky. He's gonna have minority report by the time he's older, but he's never gonna understand what it's like to use, a one button ball mouse,
right?
or even no mice at all, like putting in a load disk on a 5 1/4 inch floppy or whatever, and
having to do everything by keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing to think about, right? Is that, you're a few years older than me, but growing up, we got to, for me personally, it was out in the streets playing football, light pole to light pole. The grass on the side was tackle, touching the street. Once you get to the sidewalk, it was, you were out of bounds and all that fun stuff. You played till the lights are out. And then getting older and into high school, it was, now I just hang out with my friends and we'd play Xbox or Xbox 360 or PS3 or whatever after the football games or, and stuff like that. And so living through it and remembering what it's like to be without, our kids aren't going to know that. It's the craziest thing. It really is.
They'll be playing, we used to play guns. That was like our biggest thing.
Did a lot of that, yeah.
Yeah, guns was great. And also completely unfair. Because there were no real rules. It was just you aim at somebody and you shoot, and if your gun made a popping sound, then great. But if not, then you have to yell freeze. and that means that the person's out. It's like, it's basically like long distance freeze tag, essentially is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, we played with paintball guns, but that's another story.
Oh man, Gee, that's supposed to be nice. Jeez.
They weren't mine. They were my friends, and they were really cheap and not that great. But you felt it if you got hit, so there was no questioning whether or not.
About it. Yeah. You aim at somebody from across the street, and you have like a bead on them, and you're like freeze, and they'll just like stop and do like a tumble. Nope, you missed. It's like what? Yeah, no. Our kids are gonna be in a room space VR on probably some kind of frictionless platform or something like that, playing Call of Duty 17 or 25, however many they squeeze out before then.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
In a virtual reality space, and that's going to be the norm for them.
There will be, and that's so you bring that up, and that's really something that has been interesting to me is that you had a week with the Rift, right? Yeah, and then the Vive is just blowing up. The Rift is there, and it doesn't seem to be as popular, but you had a week with it, and it was already taking you some adjusting to getting used to like playing games in that space and trying to adapt it to what you're doing normally. I haven't had a chance to play with one yet. So how do you think, after your limited experience of just gaming with it, how do you think that VR is going to impact the way our kids are raised, in the way that, how do you think it'll impact the way you raise Declan and your kiddo number 2? If at all.
I think that I'll probably end up, because I will have a VR headset here like permanently sometime soon. It will become. I'm into this technology, right? So it's going to become a fixture here. I think though I'll probably end up, and I never thought about this before, but this is kind of what I think will happen. I'll probably end up treating it the same way that our parents treated games in general, where it's like, yeah, you could go play games, but only for an hour or something. Like there's a time limit on this technology, so that way you don't get too engulfed in it, and you have time for other things. I think then it was either there's two things that were doing it. One, there was a fear of being of your kids being addicted to video games, right? And two was the fear that your kids are not going to have time to do anything else. All they're going to do is play video games.
Yep.
And I think I kind of recognize that a little bit, and it's funny because I feel like my parents might have been naive, but I also appreciate that they didn't let me just play video games 24/7. VR space, having I had that Rift for like 10 days, and every single day I was in it, and there were times when it was just like I'd come out of it and I was like, whoa, and I would still kind of feel like this, the Rift drawl, if you would.
Is that a thing now? Rift drawl?
I'm sure it's probably somewhere. It sounded like it worked though. there is just such a when you're in there and you're experiencing some of the experiences. Obviously, not all of them work, but some of them are just it's just so immersive, and some of them are also like just really relaxing and chill, and you're just like, well, this is great. Like this is an environment I would totally just hang out in or something and play, some whatever game you're playing. So that's with him. Like I would probably, be like, hey, you could play VR, but only for like an hour and a half, and they have to go play regular games.
Back to the flat screen. Forget even kicking him outside. No, you just have to go to the regular games.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, talk to me.
It'll be interesting.
It's one of those things that I'm watching because at least as of today, this stuff isn't a pure living for me. But it's one of those things that, like, if I had an extra $1,500, I would be making some upgrades and buying a set myself, because it just looks. I'm really interested to see what they do with movies with VR. Honestly, it would be so cool. Hard. It will be hard, but it would be cool to get an Avengers Infinity War Blu-ray DVD that has a bonus feature of one of the fight scenes that you can put on a VR headset and walk around through the fight scene. Oh
my gosh, yeah.
Like, how amazing would that be? It's just little things that I think we're a long ways away from getting there, but it sure as hell would be cool.
Yeah, it's the technology will be. I mean, we're already kind of CGing everything in most of those fight scenes, anyways, especially with the superhero movies.
Yeah.
But it's you basically have to CG not just the fight scene, but like every element within that scene.
Yeah.
Like not just the choreography and everything, but every element in that scene
Everything
to make it
would be.
more believable. So it's like, oh, I'm just standing in a video game.
Yep.
Because when you're in a VR space, everything is almost infinitely. Everything almost feels like it should have infinite depth. You know, like if I'm outside and I get down on the ground, and I get really close to the ground, and look at the pavement, I could see like every element of that piece of pavement. You know, of that section of concrete. And so that's kind of what you would have to. It'd be hard to reach that point, but it's something that you'd have to at least try to get close.
Yeah. VR is one of these things that I'm kind of playing a wait and see. I don't typically jump in Gen 1, but if Gen 1 looks good and they do the right things, usually Gen 2 is when I'll jump in. So
yeah,
that's probably where I'll be. So I want to go back a little bit, and you were talking about how you were doing the game. Well, I said you were doing the Gamebreaker stuff, and then all of a sudden you have a kid and you transition full time to Zam. How did that go? What was that like, and what was the thinking from going from internet personality to Zam in a games industry analyst? And
so
and where did the knowledge of being pregnant, expecting a kid, how much of that weighed that decision?
It's oh, she sounds like she needs attention, dude.
I didn't even know she was in here. Mama's supposed to be awake too. I have no idea. She's standing up. It's hilarious. She's standing up in the stroller right now because we've got a running stroller in my office because we have nowhere else for it. And she's hungry, and she saw none other than goldfish. So now that she has the goldfish, she's great. She's happy as could be.
It's awesome. So a lot of those periods were actually separated. So I actually left Zam shortly after I had Declan, and it was mainly, or not Zam, Gamebreaker, shortly after having Declan. But it wasn't because of Declan. A lot of people thought because a lot of these things happened like within I think 8 months of each other, or
yeah, that was a crazy year for watching from the outside. That was a crazy year for you. I mean, you had like everything going on. Gamebreaker was kind of whatever it was. It seemed like it was on a downtrend, and then you leave that, and then you have Declan, and then
Gamebreaker was never really a moneymaker. You know, it was hard enough. I know that Gary was having difficulty just paying the talent on the regular, because the site wasn't making a lot of money. So you had to rely a lot on freelance work and a bunch of other stuff. And so I being one of those, I recognized that this was something that I was putting X amount of time into, and I was not getting the Y amount of money back from it. So that the cost to profit ratio in terms of time to money was not there when I could have spent that time on something else. And so I left Gamebreaker and I started doing more full-time stuff. And so this is around the period where crash courses were coming out for Warframe when they were doing really well, and I had time to do them. And I just dedicated more time to bolstering my own independent stuff. And then probably I want to say even Declan was probably a year old or something like that. I got picked up by Zam, probably right before he turned a year. Actually, I got picked up by Zam full time, and that was great. It was really good money, and it helped us. We moved, and yeah, it was just overall it was really great. It was a lot of fun, and unfortunately, it took a lot of time and a lot of creative energy. What I did for Zam was, I was the essentially the interim VP of content, because we didn't have a VP, and I was basically holding that position. And what I would do is basically help come up with new ideas for content. I would watch the game space and look for trends in which directions the games are going, like which games do I want to jump on and build a site or an app or within a game we already support. What kind of tools can we build to make users' experiences better? What kind of new, fresh ideas can we come up with that haven't been tested in the industry yet that maybe we could pull off? We had a super just amazing group of devs and other content-minded people that it made the job easy, but very time-consuming. So I kind of got off of doing content. Every once in a while I'd post something or whatever, but it definitely dropped off. And then Zam relocated, to LA, and I wasn't about to move to LA, so
I don't blame you.
So yeah, I have a really good situation here, in the Bay Area, which is ultimately much more expensive to live in, but our housing situation is much cheaper than we'd expected, that you would expect. So we're not moving, and like no matter what, we're just not gonna move. So a lot of people, it's funny because these things happen all within like 8 months or a year's time frame. A lot of people, they blamed it on the kid. They were like, "Oh, you had a kid, you didn't have time for anything else." I was like, "No, actually, I had a kid and I had a surprising amount of time to work on things. I was not expected to have that much time. Unfortunately, it was not the things that everybody was anticipating from me."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that I noticed when my daughter got here. The first year, like, it's actually pretty easy compared to year 2 and now going into year 3. It's actually surprisingly easy and for lack of a better term, low effort. And so, yeah, I can definitely see how you would have a surprising amount of time on your hands, but then with all the transitions and stuff, people blaming it on the kid. How did when I found out y'all were expecting with Declan, I was super excited for y'all because this was during a period that my wife and I were actively trying. And I don't remember, let's see, I had to think. So when my wife and I went through 2 miscarriages,
right?
And so I think that when y'all were, this might have been while we were still trying and before or around the second miscarriage, which was hard. And and hard. I know that on Digiwho, you said that you and Jen went through that. I know it was harder for us. It was harder on Jessica, my wife, than it was on me.
And that's not unusual.
Yeah,
that's not. I think now you kind of have a better understanding of it for sure.
Now that it's one of those things that, like, now that my daughter's here, like, it feels like that's like that hindsight's 2020 kind of lens being put on a lot more clearly, to where I see. And I mean, our it's unfortunate, but our second miscarriage was on our anniversary 1 year. I mean, you want to talk about heartbreaking on all fronts for my wife. It was just brutal. And so it was one of those things that it took us a while before we finally had my daughter. But now that we do, we're expecting our second one. So for you, dear listener, we're talking and it's late in May, but you're listening to this early in July. So in between then, right now I don't have 2 kids, but by the time you hear this, I will have 2 kids. So just let that sink in for what it's worth. So it's exciting because now, now that we tried again for a second one and didn't have the miscarriage, we both feel so much more comfortable. How did y'all deal with the miscarriage thing? And if you don't want to talk about it, well then, hey, that's totally understandable too.
No, I want to talk. It's hard to talk about, but
I
want to talk about it because people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's because I mean it's tough. Like the whole thing sucks. Like I totally understand better now. And as we lost a few actually. So I don't even know for sure, but I think Jen doesn't even know for sure, but I think we had like 4, maybe more miscarriages.
Wow.
Because some of them were so early, it's hard to really tell.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't know for sure.
But yeah, we got some confirmation. Like, yeah, it was like 4 plus. And at that point, when you're not 20 years old, it's like your chances of having a kid like decrease by large chunks of percentages, right? And so the probability of Jen being pregnant for, we actually just started the second trimester, was actually pretty low right now. So the fact that she is, and we're this far along, it's like it's amazing. And yeah, like there's never a good day for a miscarriage to hit.
No.
But there are definitely some worse days. An anniversary, for example. Jen's the two of the miscarriages we had were actually both on Mother's Days on different years.
Oh man.
And another one was Thanksgiving. It was right for Thanksgiving, so right before a family thing. We actually had a shirt ordered and everything for Declan to wear that said had a little turkey on it. It was like, I'm gonna be a brother or something like that. And so, funny enough, Jen's gonna be pregnant and have the kid right around that time. So I stashed the shirt here in my office because I didn't want my wife to see it when I came in. And so I'll probably be able to bust that out and let Declan wear it, assuming it fits.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's it's hard. It's really hard, and a lot of people don't talk about it. And you know what? A lot of people, frankly, don't understand it.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have one kid, or if you never thought about having kids. I know for fucking sure I didn't understand it before. I thought it was like I was like, oh well, it wasn't a kid, thankfully, But it's like
it happens, and you're like, that was my kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And it kind of puts a whole different spin on it.
Yep.
I love the fact that you hid the shirt and that you're going to be able to bring that full circle. Like, that's just awesome. And it's the little things like that in parenting that, like, you can turn what was a shitty situation, and just when you can bring it full circle like that, I don't know about you, but that's one of the most favorite things that I love about being a parent.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really great. So yeah, we're excited about this one. I'm definitely still
uneasy,
walking on pins and needles. Yeah, it's like around Jen, or around this whole pregnancy thing, because it's like, where the doctor tells us like, oh yeah, you're at 99th percentile. It's like, okay, so but there's still like a 1%. Like, come on, can you just tell me? Yeah, we're good. But as time goes on, it definitely feels like this is a strong one. Yeah, we went through a lot of stuff to make sure this was, a lot of different medications and procedures and stuff like that to make sure this was like, the strongest possible egg.
So did y'all do like all the assisted stuff to help get there? As y'all were having the miscarriages?
Yeah, we did. Not in vitro. In vitro is they take the eggs out and they fertilize it and they put it back in.
Yeah, no, not that.
Or fertilize, I don't know if that's the word for it. And then they, but what we did was IUI. And so, to put it bluntly, I basically beat it into a cup and they squirted it into my wife.
Yeah.
And what they do is what makes that different from anything else, the difference is that they can actually go in and check to see if you're ovulating, which means the egg is ready to go. But people don't understand, and I definitely didn't understand before I started having kids, was that you're only ovulating for, in other words, you're only capable of getting pregnant for something like 8 to 12 hours a month.
Yep.
Which might be mind-blowing to some, that, 1/60th of the time you're able to, of a month, you're capable of getting pregnant. Yeah, everyone's getting pregnant all the time. So that's like the hardest thing, to hit that window. And before we were doing it naturally, right? Trying to hit that window, which was great.
We were hitting the window, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so, but it doesn't always. There's so much work involved. Like with once you bust, it's like you think, oh, that's it. It's like, well, no, then it has to like make its way to the egg. So what the IUI does is it basically introduces the sperm like right on the doorstep.
Yeah.
So the sperm basically just like, it basically walks out. It's like, oh, where are we? Oh, snap, the egg's right here. Woohoo! And that's it. And on top of that, there's also all of the medication that Jen was taking that basically strengthens and it does all this stuff to basically it makes the egg stronger and healthier. And yeah, it was just like she had like a little pharmacy next to her bed because there was all these different pills and everything she had to take. But it's like it worked. It was for a while there. I felt like this is not going to work. It's not going to happen. But it ended up working. So and so now we're on our way. She's due right around BlizzCon time, actually. So November like 15th, 16th, 17th, somewhere around there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's it's one of those things that people just, like you said, it's not talked about, but it happens. Mm-hmm. And I think it happens to more people than people realize.
1 in 4, I think.
Yeah,
is the stat. That's pretty. I mean, that's a big number considering
it's pretty common.
We don't hear about it.
Yeah, exactly. So when you brought it up in that episode of Did You Hear at the end, I was I remember I was driving down the highway, and I was on my way to a client's for work, and I could just hear it in your voice how excited you were, and I had a little tear coming down because I was all excited for you and stuff. And so it was one of those moments. That was at the, it's funny. That was the moment that it was like, I want to ask MikeB about being a parent and and how it all, like how he deals with everything, being a dad and doing the YouTube thing with gaming stuff and how he balances it all. And that was kind of one of the starting points of the inception of this whole podcast idea in the first place. So that was a pretty cool moment. With a terrible transition. So, speaking of blowing your loads, by which I mean speaking of having kids, by which I mean speaking of...
You better pull this off.
By which I mean speaking of having an Asian mother-in-law, by which I mean speaking of your mother-in-law living with you for a little while the baby's here. How's that for you?
It's not bad.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, she's Korean, like born and raised Korea. And she speaks perfect English, better than she gives herself credit for sure.
Yeah.
But she's, like when she's here, she cooks nothing but Korean food. Occasionally she'll go out and she'll try something a little bit different. And it's only because of me. She's like, well, Mike, one time she made fajitas because I'm half Mexican, right? So
yeah.
She's like, oh, I've never made fajitas, so I'll make fajitas. And so she'll make something. And she never tastes anything she eats, so she's always like, oh, it's probably salty. Everything's probably salty. But it's great. And I mentioned the cooking because it's nonstop. Every burner's going. There's always some kind of soup, seaweed soup or something. It's always going. There's always something. And so I'm constantly eating. That's the hardest part about having a mother-in-law here. Is that I'm forced
the
to
weight that gets
constantly
put on.
Oh man, yeah. It's like you think of all these other situations where it's like, oh yeah, man, you put a lot of weight when your wife's pregnant because she's eating all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I see that too. It's like, no. The worst part is when your mother-in-law comes and cooks all the time. That's when you put on the weights. But no, she's great. There's a lot of times where it's it's hard to try to balance stuff, and you need to get away, like especially in it's funny in the early like the first 6 months, like we had Declan pretty much trained, like night trained or whatever, by 6 months. Like he would sleep the whole night.
Nice.
Like he was always really good just in general. But it wasn't until like 6 months that we were able to put him down and he could just sleep the whole night. We still had to wake him up in the middle of the night to feed him.
Yeah.
The jerk he wouldn't wake up on his own.
Hey, so man, sleep's good.
Yeah, I know. It's really good. He appreciates that. So it's nice that sometimes we can, like my mother-in-law could take that midnight shift or something, and maybe we could go out and see a movie. Especially in that first 6 months where your schedule is all kinds of hectic and everything, and you're waking up every 4 hours and it's just, or 3 hours or whatever, and it's just
yeah,
just a pain.
I didn't have to worry about that. I slept through the night. It took because so we breastfed. I say we, my wife breastfed, and so it was one of those things that she would just get up and take care of it, because she was like, I'm not going to pump because that means that's extra work for me just to wake you up, and you're hard enough to get up as it is. So she just championed on through and breastfed every night.
we Jen pumped, and what that did was it created a nice surplus for whenever Jen wasn't around.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing, is that the pump, as restricting as it was, it did give Jen a little bit of freedom sometimes.
Yeah.
The hard part is you have to do it like every several hours. So if I would wake up with Declan, how do we do it? I think, there were some nights what we would do. So the kid was, the crib was always in our bedroom for the first several months. That way it's easy access. We just, get up and go get him, whatever. and feed him. And then what we would do is we would basically split the time where, Jenna she had to wake up every several hours anyways, but not having to deal with the kid is kind of nice, change the diaper and everything on top of, pumping or breastfeeding. And then there were other nights where I would basically sleep on the couch downstairs so I get a full night's rest. And we would switch. She would sleep on the couch downstairs so she'd get a full night's rest, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with the kid and feed him and everything. And it worked out. Like it was, I don't envy her, obviously.
Yeah.
Wake up, hook up to the stupid machine. Oh man, would not want that at all.
And then the worst part is, so we ran into several instances of like kind of hitting a wall with what we were able to do because Jessica didn't pump all the time. Like she would pump and we would have like milk in the fridge and stuff for like if we were going on like a road trip or something like that. So it wasn't that there wasn't, a shelf in the freezer full of breast milk. That wasn't the case. It was just one of those things that at night she was like, you're not worth trying to wake up, and it's just as easy for me to do it. So that's just how it ended up working out for us. But we definitely ran into some situations where it was like, Jess was wanting to get out without Georgia, my daughter, but she couldn't because of how trained and on schedule Georgia was with Jessica, and like how they were so attached from that perspective. And it was like, it was definitely interesting for probably about the first 9 months. Once it got closer to a year, things kind of got a little easier. But
so your daughter your daughter and your wife had a much closer relationship because she was always breastfeeding.
Oh
right?
Yeah, hands down.
That's really interesting. I didn't think about that as a possibility, but it makes sense.
So because it's interesting because okay, when my daughter first got here, so I'm a big dude. Like, it's funny. You talked about how during pregnancy the husband always puts on weight because the wife is eating and then sympathy eating. I've actually lost weight. I'm down over the past, in the last 3 weeks, and this is intentional, right? So in the last 3 weeks, I'm down like 15 pounds already. So it's like
nice.
It's opposite, yeah. And we're getting to the point of the pregnancy at the very end where my wife's like, anything looks good, so she's always eating. But then again, it's only because she can eat like 2 bites of food at a time because my kid's like all up in the way, not making room for her stomach or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we first came home with Georgia, I would get up in the mornings with her, and I'd wear her with a wrap, and I would just chill, and I would feed her in the mornings. But then as I then had to go back to work and back to normal life, like that didn't continue, and it's because it was hard, right? And so it's interesting because up until maybe about 3 months ago, really, my daughter was really codependent on my wife because they had that connection from the breastfeeding and always being together and all that fun stuff. And it's only until recently that now that she's 2 and now that mom has some stuff that she has to do and she wants a break from Georgia because she also has to deal with Seeley, who's the name of our son, she's carrying with her all the time. It's like now we're starting to get to the point to where I'm able to build that relationship with my daughter and all that fun stuff. And it's really awesome. Case in point, this weekend is baby shower weekend. So like right now, my wife's probably trying to get in the shower to get ready to leave for her second baby shower. Yesterday, She was gone for like 6 or 7 hours between baby shower and then an ultrasound and stuff like that. I had a great day with my daughter. We had a blast. We watched Curious George. We played with new toys that she got. It was a great day. We took a nap. That was a good part.
Oh yeah, that's the best
so
part.
When we went to hang out with friends that night, my buddy and I, we went to the liquor store to pick up a cigar and some whiskey. We picked up Japanese whiskey. Have you ever had Japanese whiskey?
Maybe, but nothing that stood out to me.
It was good.
Yeah.
Tangent. Sorry, I digress. But so when we left, though, she had the same level of a meltdown almost that she used to have with my wife leaving if she was staying home with me.
Oh,
and it was like, that makes me feel good, you know. You know what I mean, though, because I'm always having to fight her to get her to calm down after mom leaves, but then in this case it's mom has to fight her to calm down after dad leaves, and it was like, hey, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's the whole breastfeeding thing. It's interesting. I think, with the second kid coming around, we've learned, obviously. Yeah. And one of the things is, okay, and I feed him and put him down, period. As much as I might have other things that I need or want to do, those things will have to wait because we tried to do that but weren't consistent. And so bedtime routines turned into like just a nightmare. And so it turned into a point to where there was no routines anymore. It was just, okay, it's time to go to bed. And we just kind of figured it out every night. And so this time around, it's like, okay, no, dad gets baby, puts baby down. That way we have that time. And it gives mommy and Georgia some time to just themselves or whatever. So what are some of the things that, speaking of having a second kid and doing things differently, what are some of the things that after, the first run with Declan that you're like, okay, I've already made this once. I've done this once. Here's the second time I'm doing it. What are you going to be doing differently, if anything?
Oh man, do differently?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because everything you anticipate you're going to do is now it's like, okay, now how do you do it with a 3-year-old there?
Yeah.
Right? Or actually by this point, a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Like now how do you do all that, but with also a 4-year-old? So I think we're pretty fortunate. Declan's really, 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 really like almost unnaturally independent. He's not afraid to be alone. Mm-hmm. When we started, training him, to go to sleep, like in his own room, he picked up on it immediately. It was never an issue. It was just kind of like, I basically taught him, if you need anything, knock on the door. Mm-hmm. And we would just basically be there. So the second like he knocked on the door, we were like, hey, what's going on? What do you need? Mm-hmm. And so he has that sense of security when he's in his room sleeping. He doesn't have to worry about, being abandoned. He has no abandonment issues at all. So, and he even shows like with playing with like toys and whatnot. Like we'll come home from daycare or from preschool, and he'll just go sit at the table and he'll just play with Play-Doh, or he'll draw, or he'll do whatever, just all by himself. He just won't talk to any of us for like an hour. He's just kind of cool, whatever. Sometimes we'll bring over a piece of Play-Doh and he'll be like, oh yeah, make some random shape, like make a fruit, whatever, with the Play-Doh. And be like, okay, yeah, cool. You want to play with us? Okay, sure. And that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But he's just, with everything he does, he's just so independent. And then of course, if when he gets his phone at the end of the night, he has like, we had an old iPhone 4S.
Nice.
Usually you trade him in or whatever. We ended up not trading this one in and just giving it to Declan.
Yep.
And so he uses it. It's just a neat little, like you guys would do with the Kindle.
Yep.
It's like his own phone, his own device. And so once he gets that, then he's definitely in his own world, and we never have to worry about anything. It's the babysitter. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, having a kid that's so independent, now we have another kid. So how do we do that again? How do we replicate that same independent feelings? Having Declan's not going to be. I don't anticipate it being too much of a problem or like have too much of an influence initially, because I anticipate him being like, oh, cool, there's another kid here. All right. And going back and doing his own thing, kind of like with every other cool thing that shows up. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, there's this new thing in the house or whatever. It's like, all right, that's it, and he'll go back to doing his own thing. I just hope that we're able to basically replicate the same overall independence with Declan. Like he doesn't cling to us, and I think that's a huge thing that I see with a lot of other parents that have more than one kid. It's like, what's the when you think of when you think of a parent that has 3-4 kids, like in your head, the mental image is usually like 2 of those kids are hanging off you,
Well, so our best friends, the ones we were hanging out with last night, they have 5, and the oldest is 9, and they have 5. So you can do the math from there.
Yeah.
So they literally always have 1 or 2 hanging off of them just because they're so young.
Yeah. And Declan's young. It's still at 3. And so yeah, I don't know. It's just gonna be a matter of, how much more independent is Declan going to be when we have another dependent in here with us? That's going to be that's the big question. Because once we have the kid, Declan can all of a sudden feel threatened, as being the only child. He could feel threatened, and maybe he wants more attention. And then all of a sudden, all the, independent stuff that he's been doing for so long is just gone, because now he feels like he's losing his parents to this other kid.
Yeah.
Like he could be jealous, and that could change a lot of things. And now we have 2 babies.
When you only had a toddler, and that's one of the things that we're interested to see how Georgia reacts when her brother gets here. Is she's not the best at sharing yet.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, we have some time before sharing becomes a legitimate issue.
Mm-hmm.
But sharing mommy might be an issue, or sharing daddy might be an issue. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's one of the things that I am intrigued to see what happens.
Yep.
So how do you so you're saying that Declan has an old iPhone. How much screen time does he get on those kinds of things?
So on an average day, like the schedule is, him and I wake up in the morning, and I have him downstairs by like 7. He gets a banana, he gets a waffle, and then we just kind of hang out. He'll play with Play-Doh, and then I'll take him to daycare, usually, or preschool, usually around like 8, and drop him off. So no phone time or screen time in the morning, not even TV. I'm not a TV guy. If I'm here, if Jen's like out of town or something, that TV will never turn on. Mm-hmm. I just don't watch TV unless I'm with her. And so therefore Declan doesn't watch TV. Mm-hmm. So when he gets home, which is usually around like 5:30, something like that at night, he comes home, he plays with whatever toys, puzzle, crayons, whatever, and then we'll eat, and then usually around like 7:00, he'll get his phone. He'll ask for it. He kind of has a good feeling about when it is. He'll be like, "Can I have a phone?" So usually like 6:45 or 7. Then he'll get his phone, and then he'll just basically sit on that and play with it until like 7:30 or 7:45. So about an hour to 30 minutes to an hour every day. And during the weekends, he gets it for much longer because there's a lot more downtime.
Sure.
The nice thing about him playing on his phone is actually that it's the same as like cartoon time. Mm-hmm. That we grew up with, when you play with cartoons, except for it's one device that supplies cartoons, it supplies interactive entertainment, it supplies interactive edutainment.
Yep.
It supplies everything. It just all happens to be in one device. Where for us, it was between the Game Boy and the TV, and the Nintendo corner, right?
Yep.
So it's just all that. It just happens to be in one device. So we're okay on the weekends if he has it for 3 hours out of the entire day.
Yeah.
Yesterday was one of those situations like he had it for most of the morning. Jen was able to go around and kind of take care of some stuff and household stuff and whatever. And Declan's kind of chill on his phone. Middle of the day, I'm outside working in the yard, and Declan's out there playing and running all over the place and just having a good time for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It's a good split. And he doesn't just play games on. He watches a lot of YouTube with YouTube Kids.
Yep.
I don't know how he finds this stuff. I have no idea how he finds this stuff.
It amazes me.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. So the Kindle is the Kindle Kids edition. So it has like the free time, the Kindle free time or Amazon free time or whatever. It gives you access to like a whole bunch of like kid stuff, apps and books and videos and stuff. And it's great, but it doesn't have Curious George right now for some reason. I don't know if she messed it up to where it's not on there anymore or what. I keep telling myself I need to just do a factory reset on the device anyways, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it.
It's an excuse to do it.
Yeah. And it doesn't have Clifford, which is her other favorite like show to watch.
Yeah.
That's where YouTube comes in. So she'll go from, if she wants to watch Clifford, she asks mommy for her phone. She's at the point now to where Jessica can just hand her the phone. She will open YouTube, and this is not YouTube Kids. This is just straight YouTube. She'll find the app if mom's not on the main page for YouTube on her home screen or whatever. She'll find the YouTube app, open it, and she'll find Clifford. And it's like, how did you figure this out, child?
Yeah, you don't even know how to spell Clifford.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
how? And it hurts my brain trying to figure out how they figure it out, but it's one of those things that it kind of goes back to, what we were talking about earlier when Declan was in the early months part and playing with the iPad over the actual toy piano, and how just intuitive all of this stuff really actually is. I guess that's what it is. I don't know.
So when we started off with letting Declan play with apps and such, it was really young, right? As you saw in the video, once. I would just lock him to that app. You know, you could just triple click or whatever. You could basically lock them so they can't close that app.
Yep.
And that was to get him started. So now they kind of taught him the basis of touchscreen stuff. You know, occasionally he'd get lost and he'd go somewhere he wasn't supposed to, like he'll pop up a window or something like that, or whatever. Or sometimes ads are like the worst, right?
Yes.
And you know, I would teach him. It's like, oh, when something pops up, you hit the X, see the X, hit the X, hit X. And then later it was like, you know, you want to open this up in another browser, in your browser, okay, or cancel. It's like cancel with a C, hit cancel with a C. And I would just basically stress that every time. And he got it. So now he's like, if something pops up, he hit cancel, no problem. And then over time, I would open it up and let him open the app itself. I'd show him that. It's like, that's it right there. Click on that. Opens his favorite app. He's like, yay, okay, that was easy. And then when he'd accidentally hit the home button, he would know how to find it again. Because that was another pain point. So when we stopped locking it, he would get out of the app and he'd be confused. And so now we taught him that. So it was basically like we just kind of incrementally got him involved with technology and with interacting with a flat screen device or touchscreen device. So now he's like, I mean, he's a pro. Like he's got all these apps on there. Occasionally we find him in the regular YouTube app, and that blows my mind how he finds anything in there. I showed him actually recently how to use the in YouTube Kids. There's the and also just regular YouTube. You could click the microphone, and you could just say what you want. It's kind of like it's like Siri dictation is terrible, but the Google one built into those apps is really good. And so he'll hit the button, and then you say what it is, a shape song. And so he'll say shape song and he'll get into it. And that's where he's able to find, stuff where he'll say, Halloween. And so it'll pull a bunch of Halloween videos. So he's getting pretty good at that. That's the next thing I think he's going to, until he learns how to spell and type out words. That's going to be the next best thing. He could just basically say the word and it'll show it to him, which is funny. That in and of itself is kind of a learning tool.
Yeah, definitely.
He says shapes and then it shows the word shapes. Or even though he's going right to a bunch of videos, he's going to recognize later that word is shapes.
Yeah. That's it. I like the way that you there was a progression system to how you did that. That's good.
Baby steps.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And that's something that we never thought of. It was always just we would open it up and hand her a phone or whatever. And when we got her the Kindle, when I got her the Kindle this year for Christmas, I literally just set it up and handed it to her basically and said good luck, and she's done pretty well with it. She's figured it out. She's can't find Monkey, but she can find Caillou or Daniel Tiger or whatever on that. So if she wants to watch those, she's happy. But then if she wants to watch Monkey, it's like, oh god, we got to watch it on the TV now. Or, although yesterday morning while I was reading some comics, I was like, well, mommy's not here. I want to read some comics because I just want to read. Here, watch Monkey Baby. So it's like, okay, turn it on. No big deal. And she knows how she's getting to a point now. So we've got a Roku 4. Because, we watch TV, but it's all Hulu or Amazon or Netflix or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we've got the Roku 4. And she's getting to a point now to where she knows she's not supposed to pick up the Roku controller because she can find what she wants. And if we're in the middle of watching a show and then she changes it, we get very upset because it's like, we were watching that, And so she's at a point now to where it's like, okay, you can find whatever you want on there. That's fine. It's crazy. I'm wondering, so with the way you implemented and kind of, did the progression system with the touch screens and with the different devices, it looks like it's a pretty strong win in terms of like parenting and the teaching aspect. What do you think some of your other bigger like parenting quote wins would be to date?
Just I think basically just structure and rituals and stuff like that. Like whereas so basically like when he'd come home from daycare, I would say probably the biggest win that I've had with Declan so far, or in the early years, was actually just letter recognition. Like the kid knew his ABCs like shortly after he could like just start talking,
When did he start talking?
Like months, right? Like what, like 5-6 months, something like that. He knew his whole alphabet by like 9-10 months.
Wow.
And but it wasn't. He didn't know the alphabet, right? Like he didn't know the song.
Yeah.
He just knew letter recognition. And so what I would do is I would sit there. So we got these. You could go and buy these foam like interlocking letter things to make like a play area. Awesome. Yeah, they're great for a play area. But then he started pulling the letters out of the floor, and I started like really young. He's like pulling the letters out. I'm like, oh damn it! Like now he's got a big hole in the floor, and he's gonna puke all over inside that hole. Like we're gonna have a puke shaped number 2, right? Like in the middle of the floor. So what I did was I just basically pulled them all out and got rid of all the frames. I just kept the letters, and I started using them every day. He would sit because he can't move. When he was sitting inside of his little like play area seat thing or whatever, So he's stuck in there because he can't really,
bimbo or whatever.
Yeah, like he can't walk and you can't really crawl. So it's like, well, you're trapped here. Guess what, kid? What letter is this? And so I would just go through and I would just put on. I'd make it exciting. I'd put on these little character voices or whatever, and I'd be like, "This is the letter F," and then we'd go through all these different letters and. And he thought it was the funnest thing. It was just so cool, and he picked up on it. Like and then he got to the point, very, very young, that he was just like every letter was a cake. It was like, oh yeah, that's Z. Oh, that's the S, whatever. And that was a huge thing because he has so much like that early letter recognition. Again, like when I say hit the X to close the window, he knows what an X is. When he hits, when I say hits C, look for the C, cancel. Like he knows what that is. It eliminated a lot of frustrations because obviously we communicate a lot via text, but when you're using a device or in a lot of situations, you look at it and it's like, wow, if I couldn't read, I wouldn't know what button to push. I wouldn't know any of that. He recognizes, he'll recognize the word play, because he knows,
Yeah.
So it's like all that, it alleviates so many future issues and just complications and stuff like that, frustrations, by just teaching him the alphabet super early and counting. That was another one too, like teaching him counting.
Yeah.
Learn that stuff and it just opens the doors to all kinds of things. So that was a pretty big win for us, I think.
That's pretty awesome. I think for us, for us, she started talking really early, and we did sign language with her. So before she could actually talk, we taught her sign language for like more and please, and those were the two big ones actually. Because in the first year, It's if she's crying, it's it's one of three things: either you're tired,
Yes.
you're hungry, or you need a diaper changed. Or there's option D, which is you're just crying to cry because you're still trying to figure out what the hell you're doing alive. But excuse me. But so we did sign language with her, and please and more were the two big ones that we taught her. And I don't remember how young it was. Yeah, how young she was, but she wasn't able to. She still wasn't talking yet. And when she would tell us more, please, when she was eating, or if she wanted something, and I'd ask her, "What do you say?" And so she would sign it, please. And like to this day, she still, if she asks for something, and she doesn't say please, like automatically, and I ask her, "What do you say?"
Yeah.
she'll say please, but she'll still do the sign for it as well.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that was, I think for us, that was probably our big one, which was that little, just those two words in sign, like they can help communicate so much. And it's amazing because, like you were saying with the, I think the theme here is like, as soon as you can communicate on a meaningful level at all, it opens up the doors.
Yeah.
And so from your perspective, it's letters and numbers. From us, it's as simple as more and please, because, they can point to what they want, or you can kind of get a feel for what they want and stuff like that. But yeah, we didn't do the letter stuff early because she just, as soon as she started talking, she just picked up talking so well. And so it's going to be interesting to watch her pick up and learn the alphabet and the numbers and all that fun stuff now. Because, like, she can count to 10 if we work with her for a few minutes on it again, and she can get there. And, like, every night when brushing her teeth, we sing 3 songs. We sing ABCs, Twinkle, Twinkle, and then one of the other 2 again to get that full, like, almost, however long you're supposed to brush your teeth for. And it helps her calm down because she loves singing. And then when it's her turn to brush her teeth, we'll do whichever one she wants again, and she loves the ABCs. And so it's one of those things that she's starting to pick up on those, and so figuring all that fun stuff out is interesting at this age.
Yeah.
It's
and
interesting.
I want to echo too, like, for all of you people out there who are going to be parents, I'm in the same boat. Like, we taught Declan sign language. Like when he was super young, like, right, basically what you do is, when you go to give him milk, you do the sign for milk, like,
milk,
while you're feeding him, like, which is like squeeze, like basically like
squeezing
open
your
and close
hand.
your fist.
Yes, that was the third one. Thank you. I was drawing a blank on that. Yes.
Yeah, and then you give them milk, and then they'll associate that with it, and then once you start giving them water, you could do the sign for water, which is basically like make a like number 3, like hold up 3 fingers and just kind of tap it to your chin. That meant water. And so you just do that, and then more please, which I think is like both hands or something like that. I can't remember.
More is like if you take your fingers and put them all together and then tap them together. That's basically more.
Yeah. So
and then please is the right hand, like rubbing up and down on your boob.
Yeah. Yeah. That is such a key thing. Such a key thing to eliminate a lot of early frustrations.
Yeah.
Because kids can't communicate; they just cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't. They have an issue. They cry. Imagine if every single thing you experienced, you communicated with one vocal option, and it was a cry.
Yeah,
that's all they could do. So you'd be amazed at how quickly they pick up being able to use sign language. I mean, they first off, they don't realize they have hands initially, so it seems like it's kind of a waste. But once they figure out they have hands, they will then immediately start figuring out the signs, and like they'll start, because they'll look at their hands all day. Like once they find their hands, they'll look at it and they'll make little fists and they'll open, and they'll make little fists and open, and then in their heads they'll see, wait a minute, that means milk.
Yeah. I mean, it's like word association, right? Except this is sign association.
Yep.
And yeah, that for us was probably one of the biggest, like, parenting, maybe not even a win, but a breakthrough, right?
Yes.
It's like, and I wonder if it's as common. I wonder if it's kind of like miscarriages. Like, it's a lot more common than it's talked about. You know what I mean? Because we've got several friends who they all do the same signs. It's the same base set. But then again, you never hear about it really. So I wonder if it's kind of like a similar thing where it's like, I'm not saying that miscarriages and sign language are on the same level per se, but that it's
just like an unspoken thing that just everyone just does.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the case. That's going to be an experimental thing that I'll have to see over the life of this podcast. That'll be fun to find out. So the flip side of that, failure. We all have them as parents, especially. What would I think for us, the biggest failure was not having a good nighttime routine. And so she still goes to bed whenever we go to bed. So if we're up late until... So it's rough, but it's not. Because it's been this way forever, she's adapted to it. And because my wife doesn't have to work, like we were out until... Last night we were out hanging out with friends. We got home at 11:30 or something like that. So that's when she fell asleep, was in the car on the way home at about 10:45. And she transitioned into the crib fine and all that fun stuff, but she didn't get up until 10 o'clock this morning almost. You know, so she still gets her sleep because one of us is always here to sleep in with her. And during the week, it doesn't matter because my wife is here to sleep in with her anyways because she doesn't have to work right now. And so from that perspective, from like the quality of sleep perspective, I've stopped worrying about that because she does get that 12 or 13 hours every night. But from the like, I'd like to have time with my wife perspective, there's still times where it's like, man, I wish we would just sleep at 8 o'clock like every other kid. So for us, that would be, at least from my perspective, I think that would have to be one of my most prolonged failures, I guess. And I mean, as a parent, I don't know if everything's ever like a true failure, but it's the one thing that I guess I regret not doing better. Let's put it like that. What would you say yours would have to be?
That's a tough one. I think there are these obstacles for sure that it's like, oh well, shit, maybe we should have kind of ingrained that a little bit earlier. We give him so much independence and so much freedom. And he's really good with it. He doesn't abuse anything. And if he feels like he's gonna abuse something or kind of push the boundaries a little bit, he'll usually make it so obvious. Like, I'm gonna go up the stairs, you know? Like it's like, all right, well, you're not supposed to do that. So thanks for telling me. Don't do that. So I would say probably the thing that is probably the most difficult to work through is dinner time, like meal time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We let him. So yeah, a couple things actually associated with like meals. We didn't feed him baby food for very long at all.
Did y'all do baby led weaning?
We did. I don't know what that is, but but we did. What was it? The squeeze pouches.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, we did those for sure.
Yeah, and so we maybe did jars like for a little bit.
We didn't touch them.
It didn't last at all because once we found these things, it was like, well, the kid already knows how to use a bottle.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's a natural progression.
Yeah. So the pouches were amazing, and he basically fed himself, and it was great. That kind of slowed down the progression of learning how to use silverware. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, here he is like three years old, and, daycare was talking about, or the preschool was talking about how he doesn't use silverware. It's like, yeah, he doesn't use a fork and spoon, he uses his hands. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't think about that. Like,
yeah.
And again, he's like, he's 3 years old, and, we basically be giving him like, finger food or just not really enforcing using silverware. Because everything we were eating was like a sandwich or something you could use with hands.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was basically take a week off over this winter. Every morning he would get oatmeal, like those delicious Quaker oatmeal packets, apple cinnamon.
I'm a Kashi apple cinnamon kind of guy myself, but I feel you.
Yeah. So the idea was, okay, I'm gonna make this nice and watery. It's still delicious and amazing, but the only way he could possibly eat it is with a spoon. And so during that week was kind of like the breakthrough week of like, okay, finally he can use a spoon, and now he's starting to use silverware more often. Whereas before he would just set it aside, like, I'm not going to use this. I could pick up these peas with my fingers, bitches. And he'd just eat them. You know? Yeah, his table mannerisms are something we need to work on, because we don't really have dinner time at the dinner table. Yeah. I grew up at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Very structured in that respect. Like, we had to eat dinner at the dinner table.
Yep.
Jen was more of a grew up in front of the TV. My dad was actually more of a grew up around the TV. And so we do the
dinner at the coffee table.
Room. Yeah, dinner. Yeah, exactly. Dinner at the coffee table. So it's not as formal. And so when we go somewhere that's more formal, Declan's like, well, I'm gonna go play with toys. I don't feel like eating right now, so see you guys. And so he'll try to like sneak away. And it's like, no, Declan, like, it's time to eat. Like, he's gotten better at it, of course, but it was just interesting to see. It's like when you don't know it until you go to a family dinner somewhere. When your kid is just like, why I'm not gonna eat here. I could go eat literally anywhere else. Like, the food does not matter like where. It's just, I'll go sit over here and eat it. That's when you're just like, oh crap, I forgot to teach this thing, like to train this thing how to eat like a normal person at a dinner table. I didn't realize that was a thing I had to teach somebody, and that applies to a lot of things. We're just like, oh crap, I forgot to instill upon this fledgling piece of meat sack, like, that he needs to do this thing over here, like, that we all take for granted, like, he just doesn't know.
Yeah. How is he? Is he picky?
About what he eats?
Yeah.
Yes and no. Actually, definitely more so now. Initially, he was eating Brussels sprouts and all kinds of stuff, but I think what killed it was French fries, man.
Oh, okay. Ours was macaroni and cheese.
Oh man,
macaroni and cheese is like, that's the go-to.
That's the yep. Once it's like your kid will eat everything and it's amazing, but then the second they find something they like, then they realize it was something delicious, and they realize that there's better stuff out there.
Man, that's the hardest thing, is the whole not eating and only wanting a handful of things. It's the times where I'm like, I could punch you right now, child. Not that I would. Not that I do, but when you're out at dinner at the restaurant and they don't have mac and cheese, and she's making the giant mess of rice and beans, because we're at a Mexican restaurant, because that's what you do down in Texas, is you eat Mexican food when you go out to eat. Or it's not Mexican, it's Tex-Mex, which is its own breed of food.
Own breed of
But that's the one thing that eating at the dinner table, because we're like you, right? Like, we eat at the coffee table is the dinner table, and the kitchen table is actually the laundry table, or the Lego table, or
yes, the play table,
or play table for like adults. She has her own space, and she has her own play table and all that fun stuff. But we'll put our plates on the not kitchen table, on the coffee table, and we'll put her plate down too, and she'll sit down for about 2 minutes, and then she's done, and she wants to go play, or she wants something else, or that's always food, and kids at any time of food is always interesting. I'm hoping that at like 4 or 5 she's finally like able to sit down and eat.
Yeah,
but I think
that'll be the next breakthrough, is when they actually sit down and eat with everybody and wait for everyone else to be finished before they get up.
Yes,
or to be dismissed.
Maybe that's what it is that makes it so rough. Is it's like when she's done, she's done, and so like if we go out to eat, it's not exactly enjoyable if she has to come with us, because we know there's a time limit, and so you have to either delay her from eating, or you scarf, which. For better or worse, I tend to scarf my food anyways. But, my wife, she's a slow eater, which is much better for you from what I hear everywhere else from health experts. But, that's... food and kids is very interesting. Interesting indeed. So I'm wondering... So you have an interesting... So Declan's 3.5-ish, I guess. And he's already in preschool. So that has to help with being able to maintain a good like work-life balance, because you work out of home with the YouTube and Twitch, and then Jen works out of the home, it sounds like, and then he's out of the home too with his daycare stuff. So that sounds like that has to be like a major win in terms of like work-family balance. Were there any times where you were like, oh my God, I either have to get my own office or kick everybody out of the house, or I'm going to go insane with not being able to leave and having everything all the time? Were there ever times that you were just like done? Or has it always been that both of y'all work away from each other and someone's watching Declan?
So, oh man, there's a bunch of things that plays into this. So,
right,
Jen and
it's a pretty loaded question.
We've always had a really great work social balance. Mm-hmm. We actually worked together in the same office for 2 years.
Oh wow,
that's actually how we met. And so we're here we are, we're dating, and we're sitting right across from each other. At work. So we're living together and working together. So we both definitely understand the need and the value of being able to spend time away from each other. Mm-hmm. And it's not really away from each other. It's basically just getting out and being social.
Yeah.
I go hang out with my friends here locally from time to time, and she goes and hangs out with her friends, and sometimes. And it's great. Like, she could go out and get smashed and just be gone the whole night, and I do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Go have fun. I'll watch Declan in the morning. Done. Mm-hmm. And we both. There's no. Yeah. There's there. It sucks that we can't always go out on our own or together, mm-hmm. but at least she just kind of go out and do. We could go out and do our own thing. God, how do I even approach the rest of this? So it's like
it's a loaded question.
It's like, because then you add a kid, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is that everything's great up until you have a kid, and then two things happen. A, it gets better, right? But then B, it's like you just threw what was already a hectic, crazy life, more than likely. Then you just took it and threw it in a blender and said good luck, I feel like. And so getting those balances down is one of the hardest things that I know that I struggle with personally at a minimum.
Yeah, so I've been working from home now for like 8 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
7 years. About 7 years. So I would say the biggest hurdles that I've had working from home is... So first off, that work social balance that Jen and I have, where I could go out and do stuff. Like, it's great because I am always here. Mm-hmm. Like, I am always in this house. There are some times where I don't go outside. If it wasn't for the yard, right? Recently, where I've had to go out there and slave over that thing. Mm-hmm. I would not leave the house for like 5 days, like during the entire week. It's like I wouldn't leave the house because I didn't used to take Declan to daycare. Jen would do it. She would go take him and pick him up. So being able to get out is great. I could go out whenever I want. I go out and do photo shoots. I go out and go to movies, and she could do the same thing. Mm-hmm. If she does, whenever she gets a chance. And so the only issues I've really had in this house was like when my brother-in-law was living with me, and my office was downstairs next to the garage, and he was in the garage 24/7. And he would go in and out of the house, in and out of the house, in and out of the house, probably as much as a normal person would. But because my office was right there next to the garage, I had to hear like everything, and it was like the garage door would open up and slam. Yep. And it just drove me nuts. Yeah. And so that was probably the hardest part about the working from home. But now, he doesn't live here. He only lived here for about a year and a half or so. But now he's gone. Now it's just me, and it's great. I wake up in the morning, take like Declan to school. I start work around like 8, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then I go until like 5:30. Sometimes every other day or so, I'll squeeze in a nap in there because I don't sleep that much because, I wrap up around 5:30 when Declan and Jen gets home. And then I stream 4 hours later from like 9:30 or 10 to like 1 o'clock. And then I go to sleep. And then the next day I wake up, around like 6:30, 7. And then I do it again. So I definitely work a lot. Like I spend a lot of time doing stuff. And it's... But yeah, being able to have the whole place to myself, the house to myself, really helps a lot. I can experiment with things. When my brother-in-law is, going in and out of the house, and I'm recording something, like that sucks.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't mind having an audience. It's just the door slamming and the knocking and asking if I want something from Taco Bell. Which, I mean, it's not that, I mean, it was fine. I obviously, I wanted something from Taco Bell, so I'm glad he knocked. But it's still, it was not having the place to myself, because years prior to that, I did have the place to myself when we were living in an apartment. So I had to basically adjust to that. So I moved offices, basically. I moved up out of the... so I wasn't right next to the garage. And that was a big thing, finding a space in your house that you feel comfortable being in 24/7 almost. And that's basically what I found. I have a nice studio, like basically extra bedroom, where I can work out of and do content and whatnot. And I could do crazy character voices or yell and scream at something and not have to worry about somebody's outside the door wondering, what the hell is this guy doing? It's just me.
So that's how you're able to set up the videos of like different rooms in the house. What looks like what I'm guessing is like downstairs or something, that it looks so good. Because in some of your recent videos, I've noticed that like you're not in the studio, you're in other parts of the house, and that was actually a legitimate like wonder of mine. Is wait, so how is this happening right now? Doesn't he have a kid, or does he? What happens with Declan? What's going on here? But now that it's been revealed that Declan's at daycare / preschool, and you got the house to yourself, it really that has to really help with getting it to a more, although the streaming from like 10 to 1 or 9 to 1 kind of breaks that, but that has to help a lot towards getting it to a comfortable quote 9 to 5 feel.
Yeah, it's comfortable. I mean, I'm used to when you work from home and you work for yourself. You're used to pushing yourself, and working, long hours.
Sure.
I was also in the military, and in the military you work long hours. When I was out of the service, I was working most of the jobs. Actually, all the jobs I had past the service, I was salaried. I was this kind of salaried managerial position. And when you're in a salaried managerial position, you typically work long hours. So it was. I'm used to working all the time, but the work that I do is fun. Yeah. So it's not like, oh yeah, you're gonna get burned out. It's like, okay, well, if I get burned out, that just means I'm just gonna, play a different game or whatever. Like it's that's really all it is. So it's a great situation. I'm used to the workaholic hours, because even when I'm downstairs, like I'll be checking on Discord on my phone. Or I have my laptop's down there, like in a permanent station down there, and so I'll be checking on stuff on that. So if I put out a video, or whatever, and I need to maybe make a thumbnail, then I'll just make it while I'm downstairs. But yeah, it's you once you get the structure down, it works out. And not having Declan here all day, obviously that helps a lot too. But having the flexibility of working from home and working for yourself is also a godsend, because Declan gets sick like all the time. So I gotta pick him up. Yep. And so I pick him up, and we come back, and then usually I end up getting sick. Yep. And as long as the sickness doesn't take my voice, or make it sound like make me sound too sick, I usually end up recording stuff anyways. Yeah. So it's a really great setup. And yeah, you're right. Like being able to record around the house. And it's funny you said it looks nice. Like
you do a great job with the bokeh. Like
yes, I was gonna say that's the beauty of a narrow depth of field. That's why like when I set up somewhere, I'm like f-stop 1.8, man. Like the tightest I could get were like if I lean back like an inch, I'm out of focus.
Yep.
Like that way you can't see the clutter that's in the background, you know? Especially here in my office. Like I have a terrible habit of right before a convention or right before a photo shoot, I'll pack up all my stuff all nice and neat, right? And I'll get it all ready and then I'll go. And then the second I come back, it's just like boom! Like,
it explodes everywhere.
Everything, yeah. And then on top of that, I'm rearranging to shoot for the BFF report. And, I shoot the host parts for that. And I was like, I'm going to do it in here. And so I had to move like, the couch, this old ass couch is in here. I had to move that out of the way and all my other gear. And it's like, oh God, like the whole place is a mess. What do? We blow that shit out of focus. That way nobody can see what's back there. It just looks like a blob.
It works effectively. And I have to say, it actually looks like it's green screened because of how you have it set up. So I got to give props on that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we're getting into a good little bit of time here, so I want to be respectful of your time. But I do have a few, like, quick, quote, rapid-fire questions.
Okay.
Which your answers don't necessarily have to be, like, super fast, but I've just got them written down that I know I want to ask. So if you're stuck on an island with Declan and the only form of entertainment is a Blu-ray player and a single Blu-ray, what Blu-ray are you stuck watching? What movie are you stuck watching?
Oh man. Super Troopers.
Super Troopers?
Yeah.
If Declan picks, what are you stuck watching?
Oh, if Declan picks?
Yeah.
Oh man. If he were to pick right now, it would be probably Cars. If I were able to present it to him, it's like, hey kid, we're gonna be stranded on an island for the rest of our lives. So check out these different options here. I could sell him on Wreck-It Ralph, right?
Okay.
I could sell him on Wreck-It Ralph, and I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's like if I had to watch something over, I was stuck on an island, which basically is here, right?
Yeah.
With him and Frozen for like a year. I know every part of that movie. So yeah, I know what it's like to be on an island, quote unquote, with just one Blu-ray because the only thing you get to watch is Frozen.
That's so perfect. Oh man, that's great. We're entering the Frozen age right now.
Yes.
Fortunately, she was too young for Frozen when it came out, and the real phenomenon was hit. But then we got the Frozen Blu-ray, and she watched it, and she's like, "I watched Frozen. I watched Frozen. I watched Frozen."
Oh man, it's a great movie, but it's just not something that you necessarily want to watch as many times as they do.
So, do y'all read nightly?
For me,
for Declan.
Oh, for Declan. Okay.
Yeah.
No, right now it's bugging a rug. Every single day, it's bugging a rug.
There you go. Ours is Footbook by Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, it's like when they get hooked on something, that's all they want. It's all they want. And so, like, occasionally we'll read there's a space book. It's kind of like, he's like super big into space stuff. So, kids will basically go through like these phases. They usually last like a couple months. Mm-hmm. It could be Frozen, or it could be Shapes. Basically, whatever it is that they get hooked on, they go ham on. And so he started getting into planets, and now he knows not only all the planets, he knows all of the dwarf planets.
Oh, wow.
Plural. I didn't even when he's like Maki, I'm like, what is that? I was like, is that like an island off of like Oahu or something? It's like, no, it's a dwarf planet.
That's a legitimate guess, by the way. That's a legit guess. Like that, I'd be right there with you. What are we talking about? Hawaii? I don't know.
And so yeah, it's funny that he'll just learn everything, every possible thing. He knows like all these random facts about planets. Mercury, the closest to the sun.
Mm-hmm. What's the name of this planet book? Because my daughter's obsessed with the moon right now. Like she loves it. Like every time we go walk our dog before going to bed, we'll spend about 5 minutes just talking to the moon. It's great. But do you know the name of that book? Or if not, we can grab it later. But
the book was like one. Yeah, you could grab any space book, but the book was like one part of a package because he was also watching videos about it. And that's the thing, like he'll go through these phases. So it's like then the next one is Shapes, right?
Oh, cool.
Like he knows I didn't know what a nonagon was until Declan started reading up about shapes.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, that's a 9-sided shape.
I did not know. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, a heptagon. Heptagon is a 7-sided shape. So it's like he knows all these shapes. He comes and hits us up with dodecahedron.
Yo. Like, one, that's a lot of sides, but two, that's a big word even. Like,
yeah.
All right, so you're going to have to send me what this package is because A, I'm going to have to grab it for my daughter, and B, that's something that we need to share with all these
yeah, it's a combination of just of having the shapes around the house and YouTube video. There's lots and lots and lots of like loads of YouTube videos that basically they're almost all the same.
Yeah,
like they're almost all identical. But they just present the same information in different ways. And I say they're almost all identical because it sounds like the same guy voicing all of them.
Yeah.
But they're all different animations.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of information about shapes and colors and all that stuff. So yeah. I don't even remember what the question was, but yeah, there you
go. Books. Something about books. Oh,
yeah.
Speaking of YouTube, my daughter's she's found this one video. It's like an hour long, but it's like all the nursery rhymes. So the wheels on the bus or Humpty Dumpty or whatever. And she absolutely loves that video because it's looking like she's more artistic. She loves to like dance for us. We get interpretive dances performances at least twice a day. She loves singing. Her favorite song is Happy Birthday. So it looks like she's going more that way, but she found a video that's like an hour long. And I remember laying in bed with her getting ready for bed one night and it was on and I was watching it with her and I was like, this is actually surprisingly good. And you could tell it was cheaply made, but I was like, this is surprisingly good. I see why she absolutely loves this. But I'll have to find that.
I appreciate the kids song like background to this part.
Yeah,
this is perfect.
She's shown up again. Like I said, wife's getting ready for baby shower. Yep. So that's probably why my daughter's in here now, which is even funny. More reason why we need
she's playing us off.
Oh, so well too. So well. Okay, so when I say the word legacy, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Legacy with Declan?
Yeah.
Oh crap! I don't even know how.
It's a big question.
It is. I don't expect Declan to carry on my legacy. I guess doing video content and being kind of this working a lot of social outlets and networks and everything and just kind of talking about. I don't expect him to follow up with that and then come up with his own YouTube channel or whatever, right? But it's an interesting thing that I could leave him though. I'm sure that YouTube or an archive of this or my videos, because I have them all archived, right? They will always be around forever. Yep. So when I'm gone, however many years from now, he will always have that, and that's something that people watch home videos, right? Of family members who they've lost. Declan's gonna have access to thousands of videos, and you can just turn one on and listen to Dad. Yeah, a young foul-mouthed Dad, but still, yeah. That's the legacy that I'll leave to him for him to do whatever he wants with. I think
that's cool. I think we'll just kind of wrap it up on that question, man. That's a great answer. I think that we're gonna find ourselves. You and I were a generation of parents that have to contend with thinking about what our legacy is in a digital perspective, because, like you just said, so much is recorded and is gonna be there forever. And so it's an interesting thing that I've been thinking about recently, and I still don't know what it means to me, and I still don't know what I want it to be or anything like that. But I think that I think your answer is definitely a great place to start. So with that being said, I appreciate this more than you know, man. I'm honored that you would be willing to come hang out with me for this time and have this conversation. Where can people follow you on the interwebs if they like what they've heard?
I'm on AKA MikeB everything. So if you search for AKA MikeB, all one word, it reads like a MikeB to some people. Then yeah, you can find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Obviously, I'm on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Patreon. So I'm on basically every medium you could think of with that. Be careful if you go to akmikeb.com. All of you parents out there, if you have kids around, that's where my photography is, and it's mostly nude and not safe for work stuff.
Yep.
So. But that's it. Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks again, and I hope maybe in 6 or 12 months, once both of us have kid number 2, we can circle back around and yeah, definitely.
Listen to how naive we were.
Exactly.
Look at these guys with all their free time.
Thank you again for listening to the Geekin Dad Podcast. Thank you again to MikeB, aka Phony, for joining me for my very first episode of this podcast. Once again, my heart goes out to MikeB and his family for the loss of their second child. It's never an easy thing to go through miscarriage, and frankly, it's a bitch. So, our heart here at my family goes out to you, Mike, and your family. For any links of anything talked about, you can go over to www.geekindad.com/podcast. And you will find them there. And leave me a review. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know how I did. Let me know what you'd like to see or hear from me next time and in the future. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Geekin Dad. You can send me an email, kyle@geekindad.com. Or Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I'm on the internet. So, thank you for listening. And until next time, geek on.